Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's live on the one thing that high earners secretly struggle with that prevents their next quantum money leap. I am your host, Jennifer Longmore, founder of souljourneys.ca and lover of all things wealth consciousness. I'm glad that you're here. And if this is your first time watching, let me know in the chat. And if you're watching the replay, let me know that as well, so I can come back and say hello to you. This is potentially going to be an interesting live. And I do this in the spirit of supporting you into being in the energy or stepping into the energy of possibilities. One of the things that we're really good at is creating addiction to problems and constantly looking for problems to solve. So either that can be a mental stimulation game. Basically, it's of course all unconscious, where we go out and gather problems so that we have problems to solve, and it's a big puzzle. Some of us feel that we're more relatable and we feel safer if we're collecting problems to kind of fit in with other people that tend to complain, because let's be honest, this world in general, especially folks that really are choosing to operate in 3D and that's kind of their mode of being, they tend to bond over complaining about the weather, complaining about the neighbors, and so on and so on. And so we can dull our light down a little bit and go into focusing on problems, I should say, to be in that. And it relates to what I'm talking about today. So this is why I'm bringing it up. There's a lot of reasons why we can create problems. It can slow things down. So if people think that we're manifesting too much and it must be nice to be you and look at all these great things you have, having problems can slow us down, and especially if we don't have a great relationship with speed. So there's a lot of reasons why we unconsciously seek it out, maybe even semi-consciously. I know for me, sometimes when I feel like I've created too much, you all know that I think we are all under manifestors, myself included. I know that I could have way more. I'm just not asking for as much as I could. And I have a lot, by the way, right? But I still under manifest. So this is not unknown to me. And what I really notice, and you might be noticing it too, is that people are really wanting to be held in the energy of possibility. Even if they're not there, they're wanting to be reminded of what else is possible, to be tuning into the infinite field of possibilities. Now, this relates to being a high achiever and a high earner. When people get to a certain place in business where they're generating more than they actually need, then it can create some crunchiness for them. I've been there, so I get it. I used to have to work really hard to generate six-figure years. Now, I had a six-figure year way back in the day before social media existed. Many of you know that. And I wasn't focused at all on the money, and I still don't focus on the money, by the way. When I went to the bank and I had way more than I was used to. I worked as a forensic investigator. I had just enough to get by, or not quite enough. And I was a public servant, right? And so I was just used to having just enough to get by or not quite enough. And I think a lot of us bring that into our business, whether we realize it or not, meaning I just need enough to be comfortable. I hear this a lot from people. I just need a lot to be comfortable. I just need enough to be comfortable and to maybe take a trip a year. And meanwhile, many of us want more than that. We either don't feel safe enough to admit it out loud to other people or even to ourselves, that we're made to strive for more, and we're maybe ridiculed for holding ourselves back. But then if we claim more and want more, then somehow we're greedy, selfish, various things, right? Now, I don't mean that that's true or that everyone thinks that way. That's just kind of the collective energy that we may be responding to. So here we are making six figures, let's say, in our company, and we don't need more than probably $5,000 a month to survive. But then you're making $10,000 a month. Who do you think you are, right? That could be sort of the energy that comes up. Additionally, when we only know how to have enough to get by, we don't actually know how to live in the surplus. We don't know how to let money grow in the garden and let it just grow without needing to constantly pick from the apple tree, so to speak, right? And there's nothing wrong with receiving, and there's nothing wrong with circulating money. In fact, I would say a big thing is we want to avoid any hoarding and, accumulating to the point that we get almost saturated with that, right? We do want to circulate money. Money loves to be circulated. But by the time we get to six figures, and then maybe we leap into multiple six figures, that's where it can get really crunchy for people, and where people will maybe be avoidant, and they know what they need to do in their business, but they just contract and they don't do the things they need to do. They wait until things lean back towards that feast or famine sort of energy, or they go back to that pattern of, I'm only going to market when I need business, or I'm only going to sell when, the bank account's getting lower, that kind of thing. And it's not because they're money motivated, and it's not because they're viewing people as dollar signs. It's because we have a real issue living in the surplus, because we're taught to only eat what we need, only spend what we need. So it can be very need driven. And so what do you do when you have a growth mindset and you want to move beyond need? When you want to live beyond need, you want to run your business beyond need. For me, this was many, many years ago, I leapt from about 150K a year, 200K a year, to well over 500K a year very quickly. I changed my business model and my prices and so on. And then I panicked, right? And I got a little burnt out, in part because I'm sure I had a trauma response from receiving so much money so quickly. But I had to get out of that pattern of only calling in what I needed, because now I had way more than I needed. And I did a little bit of treating money like a hot potato. I was investing in programs that I didn't actually need and didn't make much use of, because I didn't really have the bandwidth for it or the desire, but I had the money. So I'm like, well, I have the money. I might as well, put 20K towards this mastermind that I know I can't participate in, or things like that. I had to really learn to be uncomfortable letting the money grow in the bank account and allowing me to have way more than I needed. Now, I already lived below my means. So I refused to go into debt starting a service-based company, because I think that's just a good indication that we've got some servitude that needs to clear if we are, going into debt, or even going into time debt, because we're so busy serving other people, right? So I really wanted to avoid that, but I didn't know how to have way more than I needed and what to do with that. That's when I learned how to invest I hired a mentor to learn how to invest in the stock market, so I could at least kind of play adult monopoly. I then went on to learn how to build a real estate empire and to do day trading and various things like that. I chose to do those things in part because I wanted to really understand the energy of money. I wanted to really understand money as a neutral energy, as a tool that makes my dreams come true and makes your dreams come true, to really understand the language of it and all of the nuances by that point. And then, of course, when I got into seven figures, it was that same kind of thing. What held me back from getting from mid six figures to seven figures was assuming that if I worked this hard to get here, then I was going to have to work doubly hard to get to seven figures. And I was tired. There was no way I was going to be able to work more, nor did I have any desire to work more. So I had this assumption, and then I was managing that assumption for a few years, right, before I leapt into seven figures. And then, of course, leapt into an 8-figure company eventually. So I know a thing or two about living in the surplus, and I still master it, right? I still find myself, as I mentioned, under manifesting. I still find myself holding back or not pulling the trigger, so to speak, on certain projects at the speed that I could. So it's not something. I think there's different degrees of mastering it, right? And by the way, some people might call living in the surplus, living in the overflow. I just call it the surplus. I can't really tell you why. It's just a word that came to me, so I use it. But I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What do you do when you have more than you need? What is your typical reaction? How have you moved through that? What kind of advice would you give to someone that may have a little bit of a push and pull with that energy? Because that tends to be what it is. But anyways, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because some people want to grow, but they already have more than they need. And when we have need as that underlying driver of why we do what we do, that is, first of all, not very motivating, as you probably already discovered. I discovered that too. But it also still keeps us in poverty consciousness, because need is basically the energy that's connected with that. So if we want to be in wealth consciousness, one of the greatest things we can do is shift out of problems, which is need, right? I don't know. My problem is I don't know what to do with all this, and then go into the energy of possibility. That's really what the surplus is. Having an abundance of money that you don't even know what to do with can either be a problem or it can be a possibility. And if we're making it a problem, then it will find a way to disappear. And we all know this, right? Where you magically manifest a bill for the same amount that you just called in, or, just something weird happens, or there's a repair for something or whatever. When we're looking at it as a possibility, and what else can I create? What else can I innovate? What jobs can I create? How can I upgrade my website? How do I upgrade my wardrobe? Is it time for new headshots, right? There's all kinds of mundane things, right? Or non-urgent things, I should say, to take care of in the business where that money can flow. But when we're in that energy of possibility, that's when living in the surplus becomes way more fun. So if you are having a certain amount and you want to get to that next level, but you do find that you're pushing and pulling with this is something to at least check in on and look at. What are the assumptions that you're making about what it means to live in the surplus? If those assumptions weren't there, what else would be possible for you? And literally write those things out. Like, if I was comfortable living in the surplus, what kind of things would I be calling in? What kind of things would I be creating? Because we often think this way, right? We get all these exercises over the years. We probably all done them as entrepreneurs. If you had all the freedom in the world and money wasn't an issue, what would you be creating? And then when we have a surplus, we can still get contracted because there's some sort of unconscious energy there. It could be a safety issue. It could be an actual, I don't know how. So we tend to not move forward if we're afraid or we don't know how to do something. That's a good time, by the way, to hire a mentor and to be able to look at what parts of my company actually need attention and where can I calibrate, and keep going up and up and up. But what would you be creating if you had a surplus? What kind of ways that would you be studying money? What would be your next hire? How would you hire forward, so to speak, right? What types of things would you be creating? If you have a podcast, how would you be upgrading the graphics or the sound quality? I mean, I can look at all the things, right? But this is what we can do when we're living in the surplus is to keep, striving for excellence, to look at who else can I bring on my team? How can I get more support in my life? One of the things I had to learn to do in living in the surplus is to hire out things that I can do, but I don't need to do. And if I'm not going to pay someone $500 an hour to do it, then that's a good indication that it's time to delegate. So yes, I can clean my toilet and my sinks, but I hire someone to do that because my time is way more important to me than spending, 10 plus hours a week doing chores. Nothing wrong with that. And some people like that and it's meditative and whatever. For me, I have done enough chores in my life. I don't need to keep doing them, right? If I can delegate that out. So I have a house manager. I have a trainer. I have, a stylist that comes to my home. I look at what kind of things can I invest in that make my life easier, right? I have a personal assistant. I have various things like that. Not, again, because I can't do my own banking or run my own errands, but because my time is so valuable to me. And when I'm running 3 companies, I kind of need that additional support. But that wasn't always the case, right? Because I had the lone wolf syndrome. So I felt like I needed to do everything on my own, either because I was going to be reliable or because I wasn't going to have conditions placed on me, meaning like, I'll do this for you if I could go at the speed that I wanted and various things like that. But of course, that was actually false because me being the lone wolf slowed down my growth. Me delegating all of this stuff allows me to have time and space to fill my cup, to do it. Right now we're doing interviews for the new company that I just purchased. There's all kinds of things that are going on that allow me to call in more. But living in the surplus creates possibilities, not to mention creates jobs and creates expansion and allows me to serve more people and all of those kind of things. So I'd love to hear in the chat how this landed with you. What excites you about living in the surplus? And then do me a favor, and if there are any other topics that are burning topics for you that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can cook up for you. And I should mention, by the way, that next week, so July 12th, I think, July 12th, I have a free webinar that's all about the 3 archetypes that you need to move your business forward. We all need them regardless of where we're in our business. And one of them will always be excelling at, one will be pretty decent at, and the other is, and I have mine too, right? So if you join us, you'll get to find out what those are. But those are really important archetypes to understand and figure out how to either embody in your CEO energy and or delegate out, because these absolutely determine whether you're going to make your next quantum money leap and your quantum business leap. So I highly recommend that you be there. It is free to join us. So let me know in the chat if you would like to join, and I will send you the link to register, and we'll get you rocking and rolling. So I hope you have a great day. I hope this served, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.